Welcome to the Ribbon Couple. Today I have invited Dr. Robert Glover to join us. Dr. Glover, you wrote that wonderful book. Well, I have removed the jacket. The book is called No More Mr. Nice Guys. And as you can see, I have studied it and studied it and studied it over the years again. And very frankly, I don't think I would be the man I am today without your book. So thank you. Please tell us briefly, what is a nice guy?
I first have to say, I have a copy of the book that looks just like yours. It doesn't have the cover on it. It's got all the little things in it. That's my own book.
Wonderful.
So, a nice guy, briefly, is a man who's inaccurately internalized an emotional belief that he's not okay just as he is. And as a result, he does two things. One, he tries to become what he thinks other people want him to be liked and loved and get his needs met. And he tries to hide anything about himself from people to avoid getting a negative reaction from them.
Why is that unattractive, distasteful to women, to the feminine?
There's a number of things going on there. One is that, I begin early in the book talking about why being a nice guy is not a good thing and why nice guys are often not nice.
Yeah.
And if we just get down to the very basics of it, if a person is trying to become, if I'm trying to become what I think you want me to be, so if I'm watching every time you nod your head, I go, okay, I got that right. I'm doing okay. I'm okay. But if you kind of turn away and kind of look or get by, I'm going, I better not say that again. Oh, I better smooth over that. There's nothing authentic or real about me. I'm not honest, right? And so you don't really ever know what I really think, what I feel, what I want, who I really am. And so that basic inauthenticity is very challenging to have a relationship with. Now, with that said, nice guys can often be very generous, very giving, very caring, very long-suffering. And that can be on one level attractive to women that have maybe been with men that were angry or abusive or hurtful. And until the woman starts reaching that frustration level that, wait a minute, nothing ever gets resolved. I don't really know what he wants. He'll tell me one thing but then do another. He doesn't have boundaries with his mother or with his ex-wife. And all of a sudden these things start build in. They go, but he's a nice guy, but why don't I feel like that's such a good thing? And it can be for a number of different reasons, for the things that the man's hiding, his inability to provide leadership in the relationship, his always going along to get along, his avoidance of conflict, him not telling the full truth about things. It can take a lot of different forms. And then just basically fundamental, most women don't want to be with a guy that they can walk all over. They don't want to be with a doormat. They want to be with a guy that's got a spine and a backbone. And so once they found out a nice guy often seems to be lacking the spine or the backbone, they often quickly lose interest. That's where so many men I work with talk about ending up in the friend zone. Even in relationship, sometimes their partner friend zones them, doesn't want to have sex anymore, just doesn't feel that depth of connection with them.
What is it that having a spine, having his own wants, knowing his own needs, his own boundaries, make a man sexy, appealing to a woman? What does that do to the feminine in women?
Well, we can come at this from a lot of different ways. I know my second wife, who I was married to when I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy, she used to say to me, if I don't know that you can stand up to me, how will I ever know you can stand up for me? And then she'd often add to that, I'm just a little girl making noise. And she goes, when I get upset and you get all, like this and you're all quaky and shaky and trying to make it better, she goes, I don't feel safe. I don't feel protected. My theory on this is that if we look at it 1.5 million years of human evolution, gender is the oldest evolutionary distinction. And so typically, the masculine, at least in our heritage, has always been stronger, faster, more dominant, and the feminine has always been more vulnerable. Not as strong, not as fast, carrying babies inside of them, carrying babies on the outside, being more vulnerable. And one of the things that I say is that women, in general, have never felt safe walking the planet. And because of that physical vulnerability in a very harsh environment for, eons and eons, I'll even ask, guys, I'll say, we men can't really even understand the vulnerability that women feel. I'll ask guys, do you feel scared walking through your neighborhood at night?
No.
Your woman feels scared walking through her neighborhood in the daytime. She doesn't know what's going to happen, who's going to prey on her, who's going to walk up to her, who's going to honk their horn at her, who's going to do X, Y, or Z. And I tell guys, as maybe as unfair and as unjust as the whole #MeToo phenomenon was, it was really a very clear manifestation of women saying, we don't feel safe. We feel done too. You know, and the people who should be protecting us are actually preying on us. Okay? So if by nature the feminine in us, in me, in you, in a feminine person, a woman, if there's that part of them that feels vulnerable and wants to feel a sense of security and protection and well-being, they're going to look to a man to provide some of that sense of security. And that's why my ex would say, if you can't stand up to me, how do I know you'll stand up for me? And I'm sitting there going, well, how do you need me to stand up for you? I mean, that was actually kind of a novel concept for me. Whether it was I get up and kill the cockroach, or I get up at some guy's face who's being predatory with my wife. And I'll tell you a quick story about this that was just, this was after several years of marriage, and I'd already started doing a lot of therapy and working on my own nice guy issues. We had some friends over for dinner, and our house was just up above a golf course. And we decided to go play on a Saturday evening, a little bit of best ball. Or maybe there were 3 couples. My wife had never played golf before. And so we get down there, and we're just going to have a casual time. It's around dusk, so there's nobody on the golf course. But there was whatever the guy is out there on the first tee that tells you when you can go. There's a name for him, but I can't think of it. He's the bad guy. So my wife gets up there, and I was trying to adjust herself, and like she's going to hit the golf ball. And he starts yelling at her, "Wait, stop. I didn't tell you to go." Now, she's never golfed in her life. And I'm not a very avid golfer, but I golfed a little bit. And this guy was older than me. I mean, you know, it looked like maybe about your age of how you are now. And so I'm talking about 30 years ago. I walked up to this guy. I got in face to face with him. And I said, listen to me. This is her first time to ever play golf. And I expect you to make this a good experience for her.
Good for you.
And I was face to face with this older man. He was doing his job, but I said, you better make this a positive experience. And he shifted, and he walked up, helped her with her stance, showed her how to address the ball, and then you know, she took a swing and hit the ball. Later on that night when we got home, she told me, with tears in her eyes, I've never felt that loved before in my life. Now, in all of her, 30-something years, she's probably close to 40 at that time, she said she'd never felt that loved. Why? Because I stepped up and I was looking out for her and her well-being. I had some fierceness. I had a backbone. I had a spine. I had balls about me. And that was not only a turn-on for her, it opened her heart, right? Because she felt safe. And most women, they want to open their hearts, but man, they've had it stomped on so many times. They haven't felt safe. It's scary.
It's amazing. I have studied safety and the need for women to feel safe and how that relaxes them over the last, 15 years now very carefully. And I am dumbfounded how different feeling safe for a woman is from feeling safe for a man. And so many nice guys do not want to be the jerk their father was or the jerk they saw here and there, and as a result tend to suppress that part of themselves with disastrous results. And so why are women attracted to bad boys or attracted to men who somehow abuse them and stay in those relationships? And I'm not condoning that whatsoever, but I'm noticing there is way more women than should stay in abusive relationships because somehow there is something that feels safe to their nervous system.
It may not just be that it feels safe. There might be a number of things. Again, I worked as a marriage therapist for 30 plus years. I've worked with women individually, as couples, and working with men as well. We all, as a marriage therapist, the way I tend to look at relationships is that consciously, unconsciously, we tend to co-create situations that feel familiar to us. And so if feeling neglected feels familiar from childhood experience of feeling violated or abused or shamed or guilted or repressed or controlled or trapped, if those feel normal, we will go out and recreate that in our adult relationships. Do they make sense from an adult viewpoint of why would we do that? No. Do they make sense from a devil we know is better than the devil we don't, of a familiar situation? So that's one reason women can get into traumatic, trauma-bonded relationships and stay. And there is something, we can talk more about that, of how a trauma-bonded relationship is maybe the most difficult relationship to get out of. And I know, because I've been there on having a difficult time getting out of one myself. In the trauma-bonded cycle, you have two people that one person has a certain insecurity about them, usually from that internalized belief from childhood. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. And then that person, and since I work with nice guys, that's often the nice guy in the cycle that I see. Now, you can reverse it. You can have the insecure woman that, gets it. And then there's some narcissistic, predatory person borderline with a personality disorder. I hate to use those terms too freely because now with social media, everybody's a diagnostician. Everybody's ex is on Instagram is either a borderline personality, narcissist, or a sociopath, right? Here's what happens though, is that you get this vulnerable person, nice guy, nice girl, codependent, insecure, whatever. They get with, somebody comes along the line and just blows their socks off. Either they're young, they're hot, they're attractive, they're sexy, they're seductive, whatever. Like I said, men, I'm talking about men now. So a man meets this woman who's way younger than him, real sexual, hotter than what he thinks he could ever get, and she's just so seductive. They have this rocket ship of a honeymoon period. The guys go, I've just met the most amazing woman because she's just so sexy, she's so hot, she's so this. And then it just keeps climbing, but usually not too far in, matter of days, weeks, months at the most, something happens. That person, this person will identify as the narcissist, borderline, whatever person, does something. Either they attack this person, accuse them of something, start a big fight, disappear, go back to their ex. What they do something, and this person who's been on that honeymoon is in shock. They're devastated. What did I do? What went wrong? I must have done something wrong to cause this. And you go into hyperdrive trying to fix it. You're in fight, flight, freeze. You're in your sympathetic nervous system. You have your adrenaline. You have your cortisol. All that trying to make it better. And maybe it kind of gets back to good for just a little bit, but then it feels good for a little bit, but then it happens again. And it starts a cycle of either attack, ghosting, abandonment, big fights, blow-ups, and then the person disappears, and then the person who's been so in love, they're just thinking about them, they can't get over them, they don't know what they did wrong, and then maybe it starts to settle down a little bit, then the person all of a sudden pokes their head back in, sends a message. Hi, what you doing? Did you miss me? And because we know the thing that the person here on this side they know how good it can be, right? We had that moment. It was so good. We can get it back to good. No, I can get her over this problem. I can get her over of accusing me of things I haven't done. I can get her over thinking, I'm this, or I can get her over, her needing more than I get. Whatever it is, I can make it good. So all that effort. So at least three things are happening. One is this is a recreation of something old. A vulnerable person, almost in a childlike state of love me, love me, love me, please love me. The second thing is that constant trying to get it back to good, putting so much effort into a relationship really bonds you to the person, not in a healthy way, right? All that you're trying to do to give, and and then the third thing is all the anxiety, all the adrenaline, all the cortisol. It's like being in a car wreck over and over and over again. For example, have you ever been in a car accident? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you remember what day of the week, what time of day it was?
Oh, totally,
what the weather was like? Yeah. How long ago was that?
Almost 40 years ago.
And you can remember it in vivid detail, right?
Yeah. And
what'd
I
you
was
have
not hurt.
What'd you have for lunch? What'd you have for lunch last Tuesday?
Don't remember.
I don't remember. Yeah. The car wreck It gets imprinted in your psyche because it's supposed to.
It's more than that. It's imprinted in my body.
Yeah.
You know, one of them, I fell asleep. Luckily, I was driving slowly on an uphill, and I hit the side rail, and I still remember the shock in my body still present.
Yeah. That's imprinted. That's what a trauma-bonded relationship imprints in your body and your nervous system. And then you get addicted to it. It's really almost like an addictive cycle. You got to get back to good. You know it can get back to that good place, so you tolerate all the bad, hoping to get it back to the good. And then what happens is, when that finally does just end, it's done. And then you go out looking to form other relationships. They're all boring as hell. They're boring. There's no excitement. There's no peaks, there's no spikes, there's no hits of adrenaline and cortisol. There's no car accidents. They're just people showing up. So if you've had that experience, man or woman, it's easy to keep being attracted to that, to keep going back to those drama-bonded relationships. So that's a very common pattern in both men and women.
Many women have the attraction to bad boys when they are young. You know, there is the belief that women have a switch, and one day they look for the nice guy to marry, they marry him, they have a few children, but basically the nice guy is not showing up, is I think boring, as you were saying. And so how can a nice guy, what can he do to become a strong man, and of course still respectful, still bringing safety to his wife and consent and all those things, but how can he bring that masculine edge?
Okay, one of the ways that I teach this to men is around a concept that I call emotional tension. And my theory is, and this seems to have been repeated out, and when I teach this to men have a hard time grasping this theory. Women go, you just figured that out? And that is that, I'm going to make generalizations here, all right? In general, a woman needs to experience emotional tension to feel attraction, arousal, and attachment to a man. Emotional tension. They got to feel something. That whole, remember, he loves me not. He loves me not. That's emotional tension. Is he going to call? Waiting by the phone. Is he going to call? Emotional tension. Look at the chick flicks, the rom-coms, the movies that women go. There's always emotional tension. We guys go along with our wives to watch these movies, and in the beginning, there's this hot, woman who's, very self-sufficient, always has a good career. Usually she's like an editor for a magazine or something like that. And she has either a girlfriend, a gay friend, or a guy friend that are her companion. We know she's not getting with any of those three. She's not going to get with her girlfriend or the gay friend or the guy friend that is actually a really good guy, right? But we know. Why? There's no fucking chemistry between them. There's no tension. But there is a guy, but she thinks he's, a player, this or that. She can't stand the guy. And, he thinks she's a ball-busting bitch. We know they're going to get together, right? Because that's the formula of the movie. I read 1 or 2 romance novels a year just to remind me of how women work. It's always the powerful, self-sufficient woman who meets the man who doesn't need her, and she thinks, he's not dependable, trustable. He might be a Navy SEAL, he might be the outlaw, he might be, whatever the genre of romance novel it is. And so we know they're going to get together.
You know they're going to get together, or you know they're going to have sex?
Well, they'll get together because, from the woman's point of view, the getting sex is just a prelude to them getting together, right? They're going to get together, right? And what's going to happen, though, from the female point of view in the romance novel, the rom-com, not only do they have sex and the sparks fly because there's so much tension between them, and they just, the sparks fly, they have pillow talk, they have great adventures together. But the movie can't end in 30 minutes. The romance novel can't be done after 30 pages. Something happens. Something breaks them up. His ex shows up looking good and wants to give another try. She misinterprets or missees something. She thinks she's neglecting her career, and she takes that position overseas to go, report, on some war somewhere, right? And then they're apart, and they're both miserable. We see they're miserable. Their friends see they're miserable. The woman's girlfriend, gay friend, guy friend knows they're miserable and gives them their best advice. But she's stubborn. She's not going to give in. And there's just tension. But we're going, how unrealistic, right? Because we don't like emotional tension in our relationship. We men, you know, our adventure flicks, we know it's going to end in 2 hours. The movie's going to be done. It's going to have all the car crashes, races, blow up, helicopters, gun shooting, fist fights, people hanging out of the back of an airplane, not falling. But we know it's going to be done in 2 hours. Even our sporting events have clocks on them. We only take so much time of not knowing how it's going to end. Women can drag that out for eternity. They love the drama, the emotional tension. So here's the deal. Women in general, like I say, have to experience emotional tension with a man to feel aroused by him, attracted to him, and stay attached to him over time. We men don't like emotional tension, so we're doing the best we can to not create it or put it out as quickly as we can. And if we're not creating what I call positive emotional tension for the woman, i.e. feels good to everybody, she'll create what I call negative emotional tension, pet or net. The woman doesn't care. She just as soon have a fight with you and slam the door and go get in her car and drive off as she is to, you giving her a diamond ring. She doesn't care. Either way, she's got emotional tension. So guess what? Bad boys create emotional tension for women. They lie to them. They sleep around on them. They steal from them. They cheat on them. They can't be depended on. The woman has to go bail him out, she's got to take care. But it's tension, nonstop tension. The nice guy, well, I'm trying to do nice things for you and be kind to you and give you things and help you raise your kids for you and pay your car payment. There's no tension in any of that. And while the woman says, I want a nice guy, what she really wants is emotional tension. And in the ideal world, the emotional tension would be from a guy that she can trust.
In my experience and from my own inner experience growing over the years, a nice guy cannot provide that emotional tension because he somehow has negated himself.
You've got to be willing to risk. Throughout most of history, you and I, when we were little boys, at some point, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, the men around us would have come and basically taken us away from the women. Now, if this was like 100,000 years ago, they would have taken us away and done some kind of masculine initiation. Would have tied us down to an anthill or made us jump out of a tree with a vine wrapped around our ankle or go into a cave with a spear and fight the wild animal or do a sun dance, go on a vision quest. And we would have gotten comfortable feeling uncomfortable. We would have faced our fear of death and conquered it and know I can move beyond death. That would have given us ability to handle anything that comes, willing to risk, be vulnerable, take a chance, be bold, be strong. Now, even just going back 100 years ago, 150 years ago, if you and I were little boys, we would have grown up probably on a farm with dad, brothers, uncles, cousin, grandfather maybe, and by the time we were old enough to go, get eggs out from underneath the chickens with dad, go out in the field, move some rocks around, carry, throw a hay bale. We were out there with the men doing guy stuff, whatever that was. Nowadays, boys grow up around mom, go to preschool, female teachers. They can just stay on the internet, on social media. Everything gets pushed to them, not connected to father figures, not connected to men that initiate them into masculinity. So because of that, I see a lot of men, my generation even down, I'm a baby boomer, but even down millennials, and especially getting down to Generation X and Z, they've never had any kind of masculine initiation to teach them how to be comfortable feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, and they were taught to stay sitting for hours. They were taught to not have fights. They were taught, all those things that are part of the masculine DNA.
Yeah, the school system nowadays is meant to help girls thrive. It's not meant, that's intentional. It's not meant to help boys thrive, and that may be intentional as well. Maybe it's just neglect. But there's a number of factors that go in there, and so a lot of boys, even at a young age, are still seeking the approval of the feminine. Now, it's probably natural that a young boy before he's initiated, would seek the approval of the feminine. Because if you think about it, when you come into this world, you're completely needy, dependent, vulnerable, and it's usually a female caretaker that's got to be paying attention to you. So you better be on the good side of the female caretakers, so you better figure out how to please them, if that's possible. But again, at a certain age in previous cultures, the boy was taken out of that, taken into the scary world, the challenging world of the masculine, taught the skills they needed to be masterful, and they no longer had to please the feminine or prove. The feminine came to them because they had what the feminine wanted. They had the food, the furs, and the fucks. That's what the feminine was seeking in the masculine. That would happen. But nowadays with men, all the way from my age, your age down, we're still in this mode where the golden rule is don't piss off the woman. Now, that's true with our mothers, it's true in our relationships, it's true in the workplace. There are actually laws in the United States that if a woman feels threatened or intimidated in any way, her employer will face punishment for not protecting her. So that means guys walk on and if a woman just says to HR, that guy was making me uncomfortable. The guy's got his badge taken from him and he's escorted out the door.
I want to state that some of these laws are totally necessary because there are some bad apples out there. And for way too many men, too many nice guys, they basically prevent them from growing up and becoming the men they should becoming.
Yeah, not commenting on the rightness or wrongness of the law other than the laws exist. And men know this. And so the thing is, so if we've been overly domesticated since childhood and never initiated in the scary world of the masculine, most men are still in that little boy, Peter Panish, not wanting to grow up, and I don't want to upset the woman. Okay, so let's bring it back to then why women can't be turned on by us. If a woman knows that she can like walk all over us and will litter, and often nice guys, they really are trying to be nice. They'll say, what do you want to do, dear? What do you want to eat for dinner? Where do you want to go? What do you want to watch on TV tonight? We think we're being kind, right? But I've asked so many women, how do you feel when your man says, leaves it up to you? What do you want to do tonight? What do you want to eat? Where do you want to go? You want to watch TV? You want to see a movie? And women always goes, I hate it. I hate it. We think we're being kind and generous and not like our asshole father that bossed our mothers around. But the women say they hate it. Now, do they want to be bossed around by us? No, not usually, unless it's, in a kind of fun way in the bedroom. They don't want to be out in the work world all day long making decisions and have to come home and make every decision in their relationship. But because the guy's trying to be nice and do it right and not do it wrong or upset the woman, they create no emotional tension. And so the women just kind of get bored and lose interest and their sex drive goes away. And, they watch a lot of rom-coms and eat chocolate and drink red wine because that's the most exciting thing they have going on. Or they eat a lot or get invested in the kids or have an affair with a workmate. So the women need the emotional tension, and a nice guy in trying to be nice doesn't create it. Give you an example. My wife is a strong woman. We've been married 8 years now. She grew up in poverty, 8 out of 10 kids in Guadalajara, Mexico. When I met her, we didn't speak the same language. I'm 22 years older than her. We have very different upbringings. You live in Seattle, you live in Everett, you're around Boeing. I grew up in Bellevue, which was just, East Side was just Boeing engineers' families playing, the kids playing soccer. Very white bread. No conflict, good educational system. And my wife and I couldn't be any more different. She learned to fight growing up. She was picked on. Every man she's ever known has been a serial cheater, abandoned her, neglected her. She's tough. And, she can get shit done. But she tells me, I love it when you tell me no. I love it when you're my boss. I love it when you take charge. She says, I don't want to be the man when I say jump, he says how high. I mean, she tells me that. And she challenges, am I man enough to be your man? It's like we'll walk into a restaurant here in Mexico. And they quickly see I'm not Mexican. And they ask her, the waiter said, should I give him a menu in English? And my wife goes, no, give him a menu in Spanish. He's in Mexico. He can speak Spanish. And I can't. She's a good teacher. I've learned Spanish. So then they'll go to give her a menu. And she'll go, no, he's my boss. He'll order for me. And I'll look at him and go, I get to be the boss when she says I can. Yeah, we'll be playful and joking. But she wants me to surprise her, to get to order for her what I already know she likes. I taught her from the day we first met, wait for me to open your door. I open her door getting out of the car. I do it with my stepdaughter. I do it with my mother. My stepson does it for his mother. So and she just loves it. She loves being that queen, dressing up, going out. I'm going to open her door. I'm going to order for her. We're going to have a great time together. I'm going to make the reservations. I'm going to set the tone. I'm going to say, let's go here for dinner tonight. She's going to show me 2 dresses. Which one? And I better pick one. I can't say whichever one you like, dear. No. She wants one picked. And men, rule of thumb, pick the sexiest one and the one most close to the color red. Or black, but red. If there's a red one, go red.
So what I'm hearing is that chivalry is important, and you have made a bold move, and most likely again and again, to somehow state, I'm taking the lead to be chivalrous in our relationship, and that has somehow opened her, relaxed her, and the two of you have kept exploring that and kept exploring that dance that comes from it.
Yeah, and she loves that leadership. Now, here's the deal. My wife also has a very strong masculine side to her. She can get things done like nobody's business. But she also has a wisdom about things I don't. She's got a street smarts about her. She knows situations. When we buy a car, I don't even go. She goes and buys the car. Mainly because if I show up, I'm getting the gringo price on that car. You know, the white American walks in, the price just went up on the car.
It's interesting because you live in a still very macho culture in Mexico, and the US is not as macho, but there's still that macho-ness in some ways, or those principles, you know, if a woman goes by herself to a dealership, you know, in
she's going to be the one getting ripped off, right?
Yeah,
she's
exactly.
She's an easy mark. We'll run the price up on her. So she can handle it. She can do those things very beautifully. She's a strong woman, but because she's a strong woman, she wants a strong man.
I'm pretty sure you and I could talk for a long time about what men could do, and you gave us some good examples. There are also women watching this video. What can a woman who is married to a nice guy, who basically is fairly emasculated, do to basically dis-emasculate him so that he can basically grow a pair?
Good luck. Good luck, because we're dealing with polarity here, right? There's going to be a polarity in most relationships. There'll be a polarity. There's going to be a masculine pole and a feminine pole, and it has nothing to do with male, female, man, woman. It maybe has something to do with it, but typically, because you can look at gay relationships and lesbian relationships, and they still have a polarity. There's still a masculine and feminine pole. In fact, they tend to get that better than we heterosexual couples do. We heterosexual couples think everything's got to be equal and the same. No, it's not. You have to have a pitcher and a catcher. You have to have a doer and a done-to, a dom and a sub, right? Top and a bottom. You have to do that. Now, we can trade that off back and forth. That's beautiful, right? But usually there's a default, masculine, default, feminine, and then you can be reciprocal around it. So I heard David Data say one time in a conference, he says, if a woman tells her man what to do and he does it, she has just polarized him into his feminine. So what happens? I'll give you an example. I've already told you my wife's a very strong woman, and I have a 19-year-old stepson. I've been in his life since he was maybe about 10 or 11, and he's got a girlfriend, and they've been together about 3 years, and at least on the outside, it looks pretty obvious she dominates him. You know, he doesn't have any guy friends. They're almost never apart because she's so jealous and insecure. And it's funny, I've heard my wife give her son lectures on not letting that woman dominate him. You need to grow a pair. And I tend to just kind of keep my mouth shut going, who trained him to go along and get along with the dominant woman? Well, his mom did. So now mom is still telling him, don't let that woman dominate you. while mom is still in the dominant role telling him what to do. So, there's this paradox that if the woman tells the man what to do and he does it, she's polarized him into his feminine. So, back to your question, if a woman's with a nice guy, how does she say, you need to stop being a nice guy? You need to, grow a pair. You need to stand up to me. It's almost like telling somebody, be spontaneous. Well, they can't. Because anything they do to be spontaneous is not spontaneous. They're doing it because you told them to, so it's not spontaneous. So, unfortunately, if a woman wants to try to get, whether it's her son or her husband or a boyfriend, to be more masculine and telling him to be more masculine, well, if he does it, he's just done what she told him to do, which polarized him into his feminine. Now, there are a couple things. Now, I've worked with a lot of couples, and typically when they'd come in my office, and I always start with the man, right? Because it's like learning to dance. If I started with the woman and taught her the moves, salsa dance, well, she might know how to be the follow in the salsa, but there's nobody there to lead her, right? So I start with the guy. I got to teach him some moves, right? So that she can then learn to dance with somebody that has some moves. So I start with the guy about things we're talking about, showing up in a conscious way, leading with love, telling her to do what she already wants to do, having good guy friends, having good boundaries, things. And I've had so many women, look at their husband and go, I like this guy. He understands women. And then sometimes I'll tell the guy something about, about leading or setting the tone or creating, and he'll go, okay, I get it. I think I understand what you're saying. And then the woman will actually get pissed at him. She goes, what? I've been telling you that for 18 years. You come here and Dr. Glover, the professional, says it, and now you're all agreeing with him. But with me, you kept telling me I was wrong. So, and they're kind of smiling while being mad at the same time. They're going, I'm glad you get it, but how come you didn't get it when I told you? Well, the point was, if they told him and he did it, there's a certain intuitive knowing she would have lost. She wouldn't have won if he got it and did it different. She would have lost because he still would have just been responding to her direction and her dominance and her guidance. So what I typically tell women, two things you can do. Number one, buy the book, put it on his nightstand, and say, I heard about this book. I've heard it's good. You can read it. You can throw it away. Hide it from me, whatever. I don't want to know. But here, it's yours. Let it go. Be done. She can do that with her son as well. A lot of women say, what can I do, for my son? His girlfriend's already walking all over him. I go, Mom, I hate to tell you this. Right, same thing. Now, the other thing that she can do, and this can be really tough, is I'll tell a woman, passive's not a good word, but get passive. Quit doing the stuff you always just do because you've given up on him doing it. Or, quit when he says, what do you want to do for dinner tonight? Say, your call. You make the decision. Quit getting him off the hook, in other words. Now, I've worked with a lot of couples. I get these systemic dynamics between couples can be pretty, intractable, is that the right word? They can be tough to change. So a woman will say, I want him to lead. I want him to take charge. I want him to step up. I want him to have a plan. And as soon as he does, she jumps in and takes control of it. And I'll have to tell the woman, breathe and let him lead. When I was learning the salsa dance in Seattle, Century Ballroom, years ago, I once I learned the basics and actually kind of could, as a white guy, start feeling the rhythm of it and got halfway decent at leading. A lot of times the woman would want to be going on her own beat or doing her own steps, and I would have to pull her in. I'd get a little better frame. I'd whisper in her ear, let me lead. You'll have more fun. Let me lead. And every woman, they all did the same thing. They would all shake their arms out. They'd all go like this. They go, I know. I have a hard time letting go of control. Every woman said that. Why? I have empathy for women. If dad didn't show up and was provider, protector, and set the tone and lead, you couldn't depend on dad. And every boyfriend you've had since junior high was an immature flake and you couldn't depend on them. They couldn't lead. You learned if shit was going to get done, you had to do it. right? And most women are strong and competent and capable. So they learn to go get the shit done. Now they get with a man, they want the man to be that, the leader, but it's a hard habit to break when you're used to just getting the shit done. So they got to go like this every now and then. We got to go, let me lead, you'll have more fun. And they go, I know. I have a hard time letting go of control. So I'll tell women, okay, it's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging. Let him lead. Let him lead. Notice you're wanting to just jump in and take over and take control and make it happen. If you truly want him to lead in the relationship, you got to let go more. You got to let there be gaps. If he says he was going to call and make the hotel reservation for the vacation you're going on, don't keep asking him if he made the hotel reservation. Go and get on the airplane with a faith that he took care of it. You might have some disappointments in there. He may drop the ball. So that's one thing that I can tell the woman. Just get the book, leave it on the nightstand, and just say, it's a gift. Don't bring it up again. And the other is just practice letting go and letting him step into that space where he does have to step up and lead.
In the work I'm doing, I'm inviting women to create practices for their men to show up. A good practice is being a passenger in the car and wanting him to open the door for her, in a,
I can just see where this is going.
And exactly.
She just sits there, right? She doesn't move.
No, she sits there. And so I was talking to a friend a few days ago, and she was telling me, but I do that. And I say, but you do it in a way your eyes are furious. Learn to relax and wait until he basically becomes your hero.
Yeah, let it come to you. And again, I do understand. I have great empathy for women. My mom's going to turn 90 in May. She lives up in your part of the woods. And she's a strong woman. I grew up with a strong woman. My granddaughter just turned 18 in October, senior in high school. And she's a strong young woman. Grew up playing soccer, snowboarding, taking honors classes in school. I've got a picture of her like flexing her muscles in her soccer uniform. That woman's got guns. She's and I've always said one of my goals is to create a world in which my granddaughter has choice of many young, strong men that are conscious and open-hearted and can lead. And I tell you what, warmed my heart. When I went back to visit, I go visit her every year on her birthday. I missed her 17th birthday because I got sick. But since she was 2, I go over to Colfax, Washington, Pullman, Washington, visit her for her birthday. And like when she was like 7, we're in the hot tub and she's explaining Big Bang Theory and the expanding universe. And when she's 9, she's explaining, natural selection and the evolution of the species.
That's wonderful.
I go, do you watch Cosmos? And she goes, yeah. Doesn't everybody? That's my son. He's a great dad. So she's strong. And so I'm back to her 16th birthday 2 years ago. And she says, we're having lunch. She says, guess what, Grandpa? The boy that's taking me to homecoming dance, his mom and dad are reading your book. They're reading No More Mr. Nice Guy. And I'm going, mission accomplished. If the parents of the boys my daughter is dating are reading No More Mr. Nice Guy, what a giant step to create a world to where my strong granddaughter has a choice of strong men where they can create reciprocal relationships where both of them can create this container that allows for both of them to grow and flourish and be strong and bring their unique talents and abilities to that relationship. Oh man, that excites me to see that kind of thing happening.
Yeah, so Dr. Glover, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. Thank you for yourself doing the work from, nice guy to strong man. And thank you for holding that vision of millions of men, doing the work themselves.
Thank you for this invitation. It's been so much fun to hang out with another Seattleite.
Here are a few videos I made to better explain the nice guy curse and the urgency for nice guy to grow a pair. And here is a video I made
on playfully practicing one's bad boy with one's life partner. Enjoy.